This is Jacob. Jacob here does fret work on all of our guitars. He does the milling and the rounding and the polishing of frets. And you can see that we are sanding each fret individually with up to 800 grit, and then we buff and polish on a buffer. So, baby butt smooth. This here's Ryan. Ryan does final assembly. He assembles the guitars and strings them up, and then they go to electronics and come back here after electronics, and they get buttoned up and checked out. And then I check each guitar out myself.
Yep. Right now I'm sending in
Ryan.
Trying to get it flat and have a nice connection between the body and the neck, and have it sit as tight as possible so it doesn't feel like it's two pieces of wood, or doesn't sound like two pieces of wood.
How long you been at this?
6 years. So I've done final assembly, I've done fretting, buffing, yeah, just about everything.
Finish sanding.
Finish sanding. Yeah.
And he shows up every now and then too.
Yeah, every now and again, yeah. So, yeah, working on
He
the
also does
connections.
aging.
Rollicking.
And, so he puts on all the hardware. The hardware is prepared in another place, another room. Then he gets the kits, he installs the pickups, bridges, all the hardware,
Yep.
makes the neck to the body, strings it up, sets the action, sets relief of the neck, and tunes it up and plays it.
Yeah.
You know how to play guitar, right?
Kind of. I try.
Okay, you get the hang of it? Okay,
Power
cool.
chord, you know.
Yeah.
They're easy enough.
It's G, you know?
Yeah. Drop D, you only need one finger. It's amazing.
Roasted maple, bird's eye, and that's on a 1 series guitar.
Yeah. That's quality lumber. Look how shiny the frets are too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nut's going to be nice and shiny as well.
Yes, Ryan cuts the nuts, does the string spacing, and then cuts the slots, sands them.
I actually polish them too at the end of it.
And
I polish the nuts so they're nice. It looks like wet paint when you're done. It's pretty
That's
nice.
mainly because he's stoned.
Yeah. True.
Chris,
Eddie.
they're from Wild West Guitars.
Oh, very cool. Hi, how's it going?
Chris does all of our painting. That means that's a lot of work and a lot of different colors. We mix our own colors here. So you can pretty much get whatever you want. Mm-hmm. Chris has done pretty much every possible combination until tomorrow when there's something new.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Oh, every time. It only takes a few weeks for some.
Do you have anything in here?
I've got a couple of satins that I just put out, and then there's a pelham blue that I'm currently spraying right now. It's just wet. Don't touch it.
In there?
Yeah.
Pelham blue. If the guitars are glossy, then they get sanded to 1,000 grit sandpaper and buffed to a high gloss. If they're 1 series guitars and they're matte, then they're done like that, and that's how we save the money that makes a 1 series, you know, a lot more affordable for most people, including me. This is Jesse Sanchez. Jesse does neck carving and neck preparation. So he takes the necks that come off the CNC and turns them into guitar necks. And so he receives a neck like this. Oh, here receive a neck that looks like this. Its fretboard is arched, fret slots, dots, and this is very rough. Just as you can see, it's flat in the back, just a big round over. Jesse will hand shape this neck to whatever shape somebody wants. And then he will sand the fingerboard to the exact relief necessary, put in side dots, fill the index holes, and adjust it. Sand off the headstock, basically make this into a finished neck from this point, which is a lot of work. You can see the difference here. This has just got a taper cut that pins the neck out here to the actual finished thickness. And then Jesse does all this detail work. This gives it its shape based on whatever a customer wants. And we'll shape a neck while you wait if you want. And then they install the frets, and the frets are then milled after paint in final. You can see that's a pretty cool piece of rosewood, isn't it? So we pretty much make everything here, including the dots. Lisa, my wife, molds the dots at home. She made a mold. She pours the plastic. We have a compressor at home and a pressure pot. So she pours the mold, sticks it in the pressure pot, makes sure there's no bubbles, and then lets it dry, and we make our own dots. Check it out. You can still see the flashing from the mold. You want green? We got green, pearl green. Try and find those on the internet. I don't recommend it because green dots on a guitar, nah, I don't think so. The sanding department over there and the shaping department gets everything off of the CNC. Mm-hmm. And my philosophy has kind of always been, you do the accuracy stuff here and you do the feel stuff over there in the woodworking department. So humans do the back side of the neck, CNC does the front side of the neck. Front side of the neck, you do not want inaccurate. You want that perfectly accurate. This is how to do that. Shaping part, you want a person doing that with their hands. And that's what we do. We do that with bodies and necks because this is where you get accuracy. And nobody wants a fret slot that is off. Now, I don't care if you did it by hand or machine, you don't want it to be wrong. And so we do that here. And our fret slots are arched. Mm-hmm. So that's something you also can't do by hand. So the CNC is very busy, and my CNC operator over there, Miggy, does an incredible job. It's a lot of work because every single guitar is different. And he runs it all on the CNC. He started working for me when he was 18. And we were in a different business back then, but still woodworking. We've been in woodworking our whole lives. And you see Miggy's putting in a truss rod now. Here's one. We braze that on. And this is made here by us, by hand, to grab onto the wood. Here's a skunk stripe. Here's a base skunk stripe. We make this. We make pickups. We make, here, pick guards. This is how you hold it down. We pretty much control the whole process. There's no magic bullet when it comes to guitars. If there was, everybody'd be doing it. The magic bullet is to do everything better. And that's what we strive to do here. Is every single little thing we control and make it just a little better, and we build up a stack of pennies. And that's how we've survived. because the guitars have to sell themselves. So here, something like this, I kind of made this flexible system here that allows me to do this. Anyway, this is a neck jig. Now it's a neck jig. You see, we do the backside first, and then we have the tuner holes, and we put the tuner holes on here. This bends the neck into the correct relief. This fits in the truss rod slot to index it. And so we can put a lot of different jigs here because everything moves. You slide around. And we have different jigs for every single product. How many different versions? These are mostly pick guards and plastic parts. And lefty necks, neck jigs up there. There's a lot of them. We do a lot of different kinds of products. Here are some backstock guitars. You know, we very often will make extras of a few models. And then we have some backstock, not too much, because pretty much everything is built to order. And back here, here's some of the important stuff. Lumber. Here's sugar pine, single piece, completely clear, beautiful stuff. Because I've been in the woodworking business in LA for about, well, since '83. I don't know how long that is. Anyway, long time. And I built up a company from a single person shop to 200 people. And I had a big company in Pacoima with 200 people at our peak doing woodworking. Miggy worked for me there for many years. And I bought a lot of lumber from lumber companies that are still around LA today. I think I put their kids through college. Because we used to throw a roll off of dust away every day, just dust. And so I have really good lumber connections in Southern California. And I get great stuff. People know what I want, and there's some great lumber there. Mahogany, alder, swamp ash, pine. Here, we took a log, small log, of old pine and sawed it in half, resawed, as you can see. This probably goes like this. Anyway, this was a big log. This piece is unusable, but for reclaimed lumber, we make barn bones out of this. It's really old. It's got great figure, cool beetle holes and stuff. And these guitars actually sound great because we just oil finish them. Here we have some more swamp ash, which is just about impossible to get these days. This is the holy grail of tele lumber, ask me. Light, single piece, a lot of it single piece, not all of it. Can't control the trees, damn it. But we get great lumber. Here's another one. Feel this piece of wood.
Wow.
I've had rolls of toilet paper way more than that. Now these days we're using a lot of roasted ash, roasted maple. But if you ask me, this right here is the holy grail of neck lumber. This is quarter sawn, vertical grain, quarter sawn the whole way through, and straight as an arrow grain. Check this out. This is quarter sawn all the way across, perfectly straight grain, and clear as a bell. That is about as good a piece of maple for a guitar neck as you ever see, or ever want. This is like the holy grail of neck lumber. We buy this from a very small mill in northern Michigan who cuts it just for us. And he also kind of specializes in pool cue lumber. And you can imagine if you're spending $2,000 for a stick, it better stay straight. That's how you do that. This stuff is so good, it just blows my mind. That there is called the quarter mark. That's where the grain is perfectly perpendicular to the surface. And quarter sawn lumber dries differently, shrinks differently from what is normally used flat sawn lumber. And you can see the difference. Here's quarter sawn, straight lines. Here's flat sawn, which usually get cathedrals, you know, cathedral kind of grain. Here you get straight as an arrow. That's as good as it gets right there. If it's my guitar, that's what I do. So, this is what's done on the first operation. Truss rod, index holes, tuner mounting holes. And then we'll flip it over. Mickey will, he'll bandsaw out the shape, the rough shape, so we're not putting too much stress on the router. So this is all hand bandsawed. And then he puts this on the table and we get that. And we do everything on the front side in one setup. So we know that this is all extremely accurate. About as accurate as you can do in woodworking these days. You don't want fret slots that are not accurate, or dots, or even outside dimensions, nut spacing. This is all done in one setup, so it's very accurate. And then from here, it's mostly handwork. So he'll put the truss rod in, he will drill the holes here or on this other jig. So this is our drilling jig for truss rod holes, how to get the truss rod in, and the truss rod adjustment hole. That's on this jig. You see there's also side dot. This is the neck we just cut on the CNC that you saw. And now he's bandsawed this close. And then we'll do the front side. We'll go over this and make it perfect like this. You can see he's got about an eighth of an inch. And then we'll cut it on the CNC. This is just to remove excess material. So that's the better part of a neck being done. But the real magic happens over there, where he hand shapes the back of the neck. There are certain things that a machine is good for and certain things that people are good for. And we do the feel stuff, like I said, by hand. The accuracy stuff we do with the machine. And that seems to be working out. You can see here, some of our fancy lumber we use, like quilted maple, more quilted maple, and more quilted maple, darker, spalted maple.
Yes.
Yeah, baby. Ooh, check that out.
Beautiful.
Here, look. On this bandsaw, but this here, that'll get your attention. When this thing starts up, it sounds like an airplane. So this is how we resaw lumber. We cut boards this way. We can make tops. We can make fingerboards from thick lumber, stuff like that. Don't use it that often because look at it. Tops on guitars and drop tops, vacuum bag. Got a vacuum pump under there. We pre-bend them with steam and water, and then put them in here and glue an arm cut or something like that. Here's our pin router. Here's how we do the tapers on the back of the neck, big roundovers to remove material. Here's all the jigs for that. This sucker will also get your attention real quick. Here's a pickup winder. Here's what we do electronics. We make all our own pick guards. A lot of our bridges, our saddles, our screws, our springs, we all have made special for us. We don't use standard parts for this. These are made here in Santa Clarita, and the screws are made in Van Nuys, and the springs come from back east somewhere, I think Illinois. And our own pickups. You can see here, here's some of our pickups we make. We hand wind them all. Hard to see. But the good thing is it's really easy to break, which makes hand winding very challenging. Putting 8,000, 9,000 winds on a pickup that's a bobbin that's spinning really fast through your fingers like this and not break it. Here. Eight 8,000 winds without breaking. And on a humbucker, it's double that. And that thing is spinning really fast. You blink your eye and you're going, what happened? Because just, whoa. It's very, very easy to break. And this is some of the thicker wire. This is 42. We also use 43 and 44, which are thinner than this. I mean, wow. Now that winding machine is going very, very fast. Zzz, and you gotta hold it in your hand and you make tiny little mistake and it breaks. And it's a real pain in the butt when it does. So pickup winding sounds easy, but learning it is really difficult, and getting the right feel, because all of our pickups are hand wound. Nothing is done by machine. Even though we have a machine we could use, we never use auto wind. I've seen pickups made in factories where they have like 5 or 6 spools of wire and do 5 or 6 bobbins. This is half of a humbucker right here, and a narrow one. This spins around really fast, and you've got to make it even, but not too even, because the machine will make it perfect. The wires will sit right next to each other like this, right, you know, as it goes across, and it'll make a very perfect coil. But a perfect coil in guitars, in guitar pickups, is not necessarily what you want, because what the difference between hand winding and machine winding is hand winding is not perfect. So you get little spaces. You know, instead of being perfectly like this, you may have some space between each wire. It's microscopic, but that makes the pickup maybe slightly microphonic. And so what's happening is, you know, there are degrees of microphonic. Too much, too little. Too little and you get sort of a nice sounding pickup. Too much, you get squealing and feedback. Just the right amount, and you get a little bit of the wood and the guitar itself coming through the pickup, because it actually becomes a microphone to a certain extent. And so that's why hand winding is superior in sound to auto wind, which is much, much faster. I've seen those pickup winders do a pickup in about 10 seconds. 6 of them. Yeah, you wouldn't believe it. With that wire. Zzz. Whoa! And we're sitting there for half an hour doing this, you know. But the result is worth it, because you have a different sound, you know. And sometimes there's too much space, or the wires can move a little bit. See, when they start moving like that, because of the sound, they become a microphone, and so, to a certain degree. And you want just the right amount of that. And so hand winding is sort of an art. You know, I've never seen anybody define how much do you want. You know, how to get that. Do you go fast? Do you go slow? It's all about experimentation and experience, which we've done and have. And there's a lot of ways to screw that up. A guy sands too much, he sands through the color, back to paint. He buffs it too hard, goes through the color, back to paint. And it can be very costly and time consuming. You tell somebody, oh yeah, the guitar is going to be done tomorrow. Nope. So you have to put on more clear, and it's got to be shiny and flat and sanded perfectly and then buffed perfectly. Not a problem, but it's time consuming. And basically what you're doing is putting on a lot of finish, taking off half of it to make it perfectly flat like a mirror, and then buffing it. With the 1 series guitars like this, we don't do that. Now, what the result is we put much less finish on. And we don't have to sand it off and buff it and take that risk. So what ends up happening is the finish is thinner. It's very thin, which makes this sound great. So it's kind of like you're doing less work to make a better guitar. Now, it's not better cosmetically, but finish is the enemy of tone. The more you put on and the harder it is, the worse the guitar is, in my mind. You know, like you put on tons of finish, you got a sparkly, perfect finish, you're doing more work to make it worse. And although it's pretty, and there are degrees of that, you know. You could put on very thin but hard finishes, polyesters, that are easier to buff and sand, but they're also very inert, very strong and hard, and they fight the guitar sound. So this has, as you can see, it's very easy for us to relic these because the finish is so thin. But thin is better. It's a better guitar. It's not prettier, but when I play guitar, I'm not looking at it. Well, sometimes I am. So this is a 1 series guitar, and these all sound great. And the reason they sound great is because of all those little steps, all of them, that add up. There's no one thing, it's everything. It's the pickups, the neck, how we make the neck, how we fit the neck, the finish, the lumber we buy. There is no one thing you can do to make a guitar great. You have to do everything. You know, the nuts. We don't use plastic nuts. We don't even use pre-slotted nuts. We slot them and we adjust each one. So we try and control as much of this process as we possibly can. We do not make our own pots, but we make a lot of this stuff. This is obviously one of our Sadakoi pickups, and then let's see, Sadakoi covers. Grab one of these.
Perfect fit.
Perfect fit. Comes right in, right out. It's a perfect fit. And then, so that's one of the reasons we make our own parts. Everything that we can. We even have a lot of our screws made for us. Is that we get great fits. And to me, like I said, there's no one thing you can do. There are 100 things you have to do. Everything. And which is what we do. And it seems to have worked out fairly well. Here's a mint one. You will never see that on a Fender. Ever. We used to do our own bridge plates too. But it got to be so expensive because trying to do nickel plating in California, forget about it. So we buy the plates, but we have the saddles made for us by a machinist. Springs are ours, screws are ours. You'll notice that our screws do not stick out a ½ an inch past the saddle, like some other companies I've seen. They're nice and short. They're not hitting your hand, sticking up out of the strings. That other company, these screws are sticking out that far. They're almost coming over the strings. If you put the bridge in the same place and the neck in the same place, this is always going to be in the same place with the same gauge strings, the same height, same string action. So all those variables you control. I could actually make that screw shorter because I know where that's going to end up every time. And it's always the same because the neck's always in the same place. It's always the same length. Our action is always the same. So this is always the same. Now this here is one of the first EMT pickups ever made. I used to go to their house. This is a, so you got pickup split here.
It all works.
Sounds good to me. Well, thanks for stopping by, guys. I appreciate it. Hope you learned something, saw what we do, and how we do it, and how we've survived for 13 years.